The paradox of pleasure refers to the idea that the pursuit of pleasure can sometimes lead to pain or dissatisfaction. This concept is rooted in the notion that seeking immediate gratification or indulging in hedonistic pleasures may ultimately result in negative consequences or a lack of long-term fulfillment. One aspect of this paradox is the concept of diminishing returns, where the more happiness or pleasure one seeks, the less satisfaction is derived from each experience. So imagine someone eagerly waiting for their food from Uber Eats, but when it finally arrives, they eat too much and end up feeling uncomfortably stuffed and regretful, turning what should have been a pleasurable experience into a comical paradox of pleasure. In most friend groups, there's always this one friend who gives really good relationship advice, like help you talk to your crush, but never follows their own advice, so they end up always being the third wheel. That is what we call Solomon's paradox, which is when individuals display wisdom in their advice to others, but struggle to apply that same advice to their own lives. It's named after King Solomon, known for high legendary wisdom in biblical stories. So basically, the paradox highlights the disparities between one's ability to give good advice and their ability to follow it themselves. The paradox of free will is the idea that if our actions are determined by factors such as genetics, environment, and past experiences, then our choices may not be entirely free. This raises the question of whether we truly have the ability to make decisions independently. An example of this paradox is as follows. Imagine a person trying to decide between eating an apple or a banana. If their choice is influenced by their genetic predisposition to prefer sweet foods, their past experiences with apples and bananas, and the availability of each fruit in their environment, can we say that their decision was truly free? This paradox challenges the notion of free will by suggesting that our choices may be predetermined by external factors beyond our control. Imagine a person watching a horror movie. They know that the monsters on screen aren't real, yet they still feel fear and suspense. This is the paradox of fiction, the ability of fictional stories to evoke real emotions in us, despite our rational understanding that they are not true. In the fiction reading community, women often find themselves falling in love with fictional men from their novels, raising the standard for real men. This paradox challenges the traditional view that emotions are only triggered by real events. Philosophers have debated this phenomenon for centuries, questioning how fiction can have such a profound impact on our emotions. Some argue that our ability to empathize and suspend disbelief allows us to engage with fictional characters on a deep emotional level. Ultimately, the paradox of fiction highlights the complex and powerful nature of human imagination and emotional response. The paradox of an omnipotent God revolves around the idea that if a deity is truly all-powerful, then there are certain tasks that should be within its capabilities, such as creating a rock so heavy that it cannot lift. If the God can create such a rock, then it seems it would not be able to lift it, thus limiting its power. On the other hand, if the God cannot create such a rock, then it is also limited in its abilities. An example of this paradox is as follows. Imagine a being called Omnipotus, who is said to be all-powerful. If Omnipotus creates a boulder so heavy that even he cannot lift it, then it seems there is a task he cannot perform, which contradicts the notion of his omnipotence. However, if Omnipotus cannot create a boulder that he cannot lift, then again, his omnipotence is called into question. This paradox raises philosophical questions about the nature of omnipotence and the logical limits of what even a supremely powerful being can achieve. Nihilism is a philosophical belief that asserts life lacks inherent meaning, purpose, or value. The nihilism paradox arises when one questions the validity of their own nihilistic beliefs. If life truly has no meaning, then the belief in nihilism itself becomes meaningless. This paradox highlights the inherent contradiction in embracing a philosophy that negates all value and meaning. Imagine a person who fully embraces nihilism and believes that nothing in life has any significance. However, in doing so, they find themselves conflicted by the very act of believing in something that, according to their philosophy, holds no value. This internal contradiction exemplifies the nihilism paradox, where the belief in meaninglessness paradoxically assigns meaning to the belief itself. The paradox of time travel is a fascinating concept that explores the potential contradictions and logical issues that arise when considering the possibility of traveling through time. One of the most famous paradoxes which posits that if a time traveler were to go back in time and prevent their grandfather from meeting their grandmother, thus preventing their own birth, a paradox would occur. If the time traveler was never born, how could they have traveled back in time to prevent their own existence? This paradox highlights the inherent complexities and contradictions that arise when considering the implications of time travel. Other paradoxes, such as the bootstrap paradox, involve objects or information being sent back in time, in a loop with no clear origin, raising questions about causality and the nature of time itself. Like and subscribe for more.